Welcome to the Tuesday, October 11th, 2022 special meeting of the Thurston County Planning Commission with our guests from the Olympia Planning Commission. The Thurston County Planning Commission is a citizens advisory committee to the Board of County Commissioners on land use planning matters such as the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance amendments. Planning Commission actions are in the form of recommendations to the county commissioners, who are the final decision makers. All Planning Commission meetings are open to the public. Citizens are welcome to observe all Planning Commission briefings and work sessions. Public comment is allowed on those topics for which a public hearing has not been heard. Our meeting tonight is very specific to one topic, the Olympia Joint Plan. And we'll start out with introductions, and we'll start out here in the boardroom and then move on to our Zoom guests. We'll start down here, please.
Jim Simmons, District 3. Scott Nelson, District 3.
Doug Carmen, District 2. Barry Halverson, District 2.
Derek Day, District 1. Joel Hanson, District 3.
I'm Eric Casino. I'm in District 2. And then I do know we have Thurston County Commissioner Kevin Pessinger online. Kevin, are you there?
Kevin Pessinger, District 1.
And then do you guys have your own introduction schedule? Olympia?
Are you, yeah, usually we do a roll call. Is that something that we'll get to after introductions or?
No, well, let's do that right now so everybody knows who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Carrie Hornbein, Senior Planner with Community Planning and Development, and then I'll just let it roll into our commissioners.
Sam Najati, Olympia Planning Commission Chair.
Tracy Carlos, she, her pronouns, Vice Chair.
Candy Millar.
I'm Carol Richmond, Commissioner.
William Hanna, Commissioner.
Greg Queaton, he, him, pronouns, Commissioner.
And if I can just add in, I understand that another one of our commissioners, Tammy Adams, was going to try to make it in person. So she may be joining you there in your meeting room. And then another one of our commissioners, Rad, was not able to make it this evening.
Oh, and we also just had Commissioner Wheatley come online. Let's do a sound check, Commissioner Wheatley.
Yeah, hi. I foolishly went down to the Olympia. I thought it was going to be in Olympia.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, but I do have to say, I just tried to join sort of as a member. I think I must have been trying to join as a member of the public, and I put in the passcode, and well, I guess there's no. I didn't show up, so I don't know if that's because members of the public can't participate in this, and you can only do it as a panelist.
You came in under the public, and then they moved you over as a panelist.
Well, I just re-entered as a panelist, but yeah, anyway, but I'm here now.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll hopefully everybody saw our agenda, and I did entertain a motion on the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Call for the vote.
Commissioner Helverson.
Aye.
Commissioner Day.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmen.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Pessinger.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Casino.
Aye, the agenda has been approved.
Bye.
You get for coming.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to the public communication portion of our meeting. And we have one in the boardroom to speak, and I don't know if there's anybody online yet, but we'll start here in the boardroom. You have 3 minutes. And Mr. Tom Schrader, if you'd like to address us, that'd be great.
I felt kind of guilty driving up such a nice day and having all you guys not being walk the dog or being working in the yard. So thank you all for serving. We appreciate that. The public appreciates that. I'm talking to you. I'm before you because I have a property which is being considered within the joint plan. And the property is the almost 9 acres on the corner of Rich Road and Yelm Highway. It's kind of where the fireworks stands is every year over there across from Satina Manufacturing. Back in 2017, almost 5 years ago, I applied for the comp plan amendment. for the master plan amendment for that property. That property is only one property, the only property in the county zone, COSC, Community Oriented Shopping Center. That means that essentially a grocery store has to go there. It's the second part of a component from Glenmore Village master plan. So the other section down Ridge Road has been developed. The residential component has been developed. My 9 acres is the commercial component of that. The requirements of the plat at the time is commercial goes there with a park and some other things, not residential. As you drive around that area, you'll see there's an abundance of grocery stores there. So the restriction is that on that 9 acres is that a grocery store has to be built amongst a few other things. And it's a big grocery store. So my amendment would be is to remove that, number one, so that other things can be built there. And so time went by and we're trying to get on to the docket process here. So when you do the application, time goes by, they're developing their dockets. It took until May of last year for me to be able to actually get on that. I did tell the county to go on a reserve status until I worked through some things about which zone I wanted to go to. So from COSC, the county said, I have to declare which zone I need to go to. And the zoning that I selected was PORM. As you know, this is City of Olympia, UGA, so it's a two-way path. The county has to work with the city has to work with the county. I check with administrative staff and all the way up to county commissioners about which is the best way to go and all that. So the zone that I selected was PORM zoning. So, and that's what my rezone is within the docket. But I've learned that on September 15th, I got an email from county staff saying that they were having an open house about the rezone with the neighbors. This was a week before the open house. It also was a couple of days before I actually left for Germany for 2.5 weeks. So essentially, I wasn't able to attend the open house. The other thing that the email said was, and it had attached to it was a letter from the City of Olympia that said, a letter dated July 25th that said essentially the City of Olympia is not on board with all the information that they know for my rezone application. They're not on board. The letter, the July 25th letter, which that was the first time on September 15th that I ever saw that letter. So what I come before you today to ask you to consider, try to help me with is that with my legal staff that I have had to bring online because of this is, my understanding is that, and this is working with the city, that the best route to go is not a rezone, but a text amendment along with amended master plan. That is what I've been told to date. So if I have to switch gears off of that, then I have to then go back into the docket system. So I think as a member of the public, having not gotten the information from the City of Olympia from the July 25th, that I should be able to, within this docket system, is be able to, within this docket period, change my docketing from a rezone to the text code amendment and not have to go the full year, the November application. Because of that, I think it's a burden that is something that I didn't know about. And I think for the public, it's right now I'm in negotiations with the new Olympia Elementary School for that site. So that's pretty much where I'm going to is there's not something that I didn't do that I was supposed to do to keep my docket in place. I think because of staff, and I like the staff of the county, the leadership is very strong, a whole lot better over the last 2-3 years. I work with them all the time. There are staff changes and staff shortages, and I understand that things are missed as I miss things. But so for me is I'll implore you to please, for this property and for potentially Olympia School District, pairing up with the new high school that's supposed to go on the Spooner Farms.
Wrap it up pretty soon, Mr. Schrader.
Okay, is to please try to work with the county and the commissioners to try to keep me on the docket for changing from the rezone application. My staff can do this, can do the application to the text code amendment. And by the meeting next week on the 19th, I would have all that done. That's what I would request from you, if you could.
Thank you for your comments.
Sorry if I went over.
No problem. There's nobody else in the boardroom. I don't know if we have anybody online, but if you do, please raise your hand and staff will elevate you It doesn't look like there's anybody there at all, is there?
They have one person, but they have not raised their hand.
All right, well, having no more further public comment, we'll move on to the next item, which is our work session on the Olympia Joint Plan with staffer Leah Davis.
Good evening, Commissioner Leah Davis with Thurston County Community Planning. As you know from the introductions, Carrie Hornbein is here as staff from the City of Olympia, and Maya Teeple is also here from Thurston County. So I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation. Let's see. So let's see, let's go to the next one. This is my first time. Usually Maya does this for me.
Leah, will you be able to screen share that?
I did. Let me try again.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you.
There we go. How's that?
Good.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. So I would like to summarize what we're going to accomplish tonight. So the intent of this joint work session, the purpose of the joint plan, the elements, goals, and policies of the joint plan, and the implementation and next steps. So the joint plan is part of both county and city comprehensive plans. The policies of the joint plan must reflect an increasingly dense population in the urban growth area. The UGA is the jurisdiction of the county, but the goals and policies must be in alignment with the city in order to prepare for annexation in the future. Tonight, staff is here to answer questions about the goals and policies and in order to update it to reflect current conditions and updated comp plans of the city and county. So as the population increases in our area, the joint plan serves as a guide to development and helps jurisdictions make coordinated planning decisions by providing the framework for development regulations. State law requires that the city and county work together to create a joint plan. It is one product that helps fulfill the countywide planning policies that were adopted in 1992 and amended in 2015. The city and county working together on a joint plan help provide predictability for people living in the UGA in the event that their properties are annexed. The collaboration of the joint plan was first begun in 1988 with the first Olympia joint plan adopted in 1995. No significant changes have been made to the joint plan since 2004. So the urban growth area is depicted in white on this map. It totals a little more than 3,900 acres. The population of Olympia and the UGA combined is expected to increase about 3% per year. Most of that growth will occur in the urban growth area. That is an increase of about 20,000 people in the next 20 years. This plan helps prepare the UGA to accommodate the increased population, planning for places for the added people to live and work. This update will address current community interests and align with Olympia's comp plan and bring the joint plan into compliance with state requirements. This draft of the Olympia joint plan is a total repeal and replacement of the 2004 plan. This update is largely based on the Olympia comp plan. The city did extensive public outreach in their previous comp plan update, getting input from about 1,500 residents. This draft reflects those updated goals and policies. So here are the main chapters of the joint plan. The elements cover everything from protecting the natural environment to coordinating public services for the residents of the urban growth area. The county sent the draft of the joint plan to its various departments for review, including transportation, utilities, parks, fire, and sheriff. We either got approval of the goals and policies from those departments or adjusted the goals and policies to fit those of the county. The land use section is the largest in the joint plan. Land use policies are the primary way to help guide the expected growth. The goals and policies help protect agricultural lands, forest lands, and other natural resources. The land use section also takes into consideration the other elements. It helps tie together transportation, parks, utilities, etc., and the policies provide direction to implement the goals of the joint plan. As I said, the land use chapter is coordinated with other chapters. This coordination helps ensure that development is done in the most cost-effective way, such as providing utilities, transportation, and parks only when needed. This helps provide the best value and service to residents. There is one land use and zoning amendment to consider as part of this update, known as Glenmore Village. A property owner applied for a rezone of 8.83 acres. It is currently part of a planned development, which requires open space and a grocery store. The proposal is to rezone for professional office and multifamily housing. The parcel under consideration is in red. In the current zoning, which is community-oriented shopping center, it would serve the 45 homes in the pink area to the south, which are part of the planned development, as well as surrounding neighborhoods. Staff held an open house last month to inform the residents of the proposed amendment and to get feedback from them. The allowed uses of the current zoning, which is community-oriented shopping center, and the proposed zoning, which is professional office, residential, multifamily, are similar with the exception of the required open space and required grocery store in the current zoning and land use. The current zoning is a little more oriented to supporting the nearby neighborhoods. So on to a different topic. Every year, Geodata performs a review of areas where zoning lines do not match up with property lines or other geographic features. There are 7 of these areas in the Olympia UGA that need correction. This is informational only because these will be adopted with the joint plan. There's no decision needed from you. It's important to note that these corrections may create small changes in the acreage of the future land use map. So I'd like to provide an overview of the various chapters of the joint plan and their goals. So the goal of the transportation, some goals of the transportation plan are safer travel for all modes of transportation, moving goods and people more efficiently, creating and maintaining well-connected streets, bike paths, and sidewalks, and making sure this all occurs in a way that keeps up with growth. There is one policy in which the county and city differ in the transportation chapter. Goal 8, policy 8.1. It is how the level of service is measured. The city assesses the level of service for all modes of transportation. The county uses only metrics for vehicle concurrency. Because the policies differ, it includes a footnote stating the difference and referencing the city's transportation master plan, keeping the county's policies in place in the joint plan. So it is important as the UGA gets more densely populated that utilities are available as areas are incorporated. The city provides water, sewer, stormwater management, and garbage and recycling services. The challenges of meeting the provision of drinking water are increased regulations, keeping up with growth, and protecting rainwater. One of the biggest causes of groundwater contamination are septic systems, which takes us into providing sewer in the increasingly dense UGA. The city expects that most of the UGA will be connected to sewer by the year 2035, thereby reducing the contamination from septic systems. Managing stormwater with increased population is also becoming more challenging. Good management helps prevent flooding, increased river temperatures, and sea level rise. The City of Olympia provides waste management services to residents of the city. The joint plan includes goals and policies to help reduce the inherent challenges of garbage production. The joint plan includes goals and policies to provide a minimum level of services for a variety of park types. It includes goals and policies for locating and funding parks and programs. The ever-increasing population will need jobs. Community planning done well will help ensure that employment needs are met. So here are some economic projections for the future up to the year 2040. You can read that, so I'm not going to. Goals and policies for coordinating public services are included in the joint plan. This will help the transition from county provided to city provided services as annexation occurs. So I'd like to review the public engagement that we've had. Olympia conducted extensive outreach during the recent comp plan update. We held the joint open house for the residents of Glenmore Village, and we'll have 2 public hearings for community input. The next steps for this joint plan, we would like both planning commissions to review the joint plan and then set a public hearing and make a joint recommendation. The city council will then take that recommendation and review the materials and come up with the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who will then hold a public hearing and then eventually adopt the joint plan. This is our desired timeline for the next 3 steps. If we need another work session after tonight, we've reserved October 26th for another work session. We've also reserved November 30th for a public hearing. And then by the end of the year, it would be nice to have a joint recommendation to the board. So on slide 30, if once we're done with questions and discussions, I have a draft motion prepared. And that's the end of my presentation. So back to you, Commissioner Casino.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah, or we could start with you, Jim.
Okay, it's just the fact that Mr. Schrader and I work in the same office. So I don't know, is that the reason to recuse myself from this discussion, or?
Do you feel like you have a conflict of interest there?
No, I don't.
Do you feel like that you can operate impartially?
I hope I could, yeah.
Was there any objections from the Thurston County Planning Commission on leaving Jim in the discussion?
I object.
All right. Thanks, Jim. We appreciate it. All right. Go ahead.
Commissioner Wheatley has a question.
Commissioner Wheatley, go ahead.
Yeah, when you say you work in the same office, what does that mean?
We're realtors there. I'm a realtor at Remax Parkside, and we work together. I mean, I'm just saying we're in the same office. We've done some business together, as far as selling and resales of homes, but that's basically what I mean. We're not. I mean, I have no connection with the project or anything like that, if that's what you're kind of thinking. It's just that we're in the same office, a real estate office.
Well, I wish this had come up a little sooner, maybe, so that I could ponder this and look at the rules.
Rules aren't specific to this particular kind of issue, though, are they?
So this is a legislative discussion and not a quasi judicial.
Very, very fair.
So perception of fairness to that particular law does not come into play in this instance, but it's up to the commissioner if he does or does not.
It's his individual decision, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it probably is an individual decision. I think the wise decision would be to recuse yourself, but I think that's up to you.
Well, there's 2 commissioners that have said that I should do that, so that's probably enough for me.
Is that enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody said that they were comfortable with it, then I wouldn't do it, but there's 2, and so.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate you bringing that up. And we'll make sure we lift you back in when we're doing other stuff.
It's just the one subject.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Well, that's a good point.
It's not the whole plan. It's only the one piece of property.
It's just for the one piece of property.
Yeah.
You're going to be involved in the discussions for everything else other than the one piece of property.
Sure.
All right. All right. I guess let's get to.
We're not gonna let you out.
Let's rope this back into the topic at hand though, which is the actual joint plan. So if there's any discussions on that, we can start fielding those.
One question.
Go ahead.
Could you go back to slide 14, Lynn?
Yes. Okay, I'm getting there.
That's okay. I'd be slower than you, believe me.
There's 14.
Okay, so it says the city is not fully supportive without more info on MPD.
Oh, that's the master plan development.
Okay, so we have the city planning commission here and the senior planner. Could we ask what you're not fully supportive of?
Carrie.
Okay, alrighty. Hi, I'm actually trying to get everybody back on screen here. What it specifically is your question?
It says on the slide that we've got that on the Gilmore Village movement from a COSC to a PO/RM, the city is not fully supportive without more info on the MPD. I'm using a lot of abbreviations.
Yeah. But we're good at that.
Okay, so my question is what are you not fully supportive of and what information do you require to turn the corner on that?
Just as far as a little bit of background, Joyce Phillips, who was unable to be here this evening along with myself, had written a letter to the county in 2018. I just did want to point out that it was CC'd to Mr. Schrader. So he was in receipt of that. And the main concern that the city has is that there's an underlying master plan that calls for certain types of uses that the PORM zoning may not sync up with. And so the additional information that we haven't seen yet is like, what is the rationale for making that change, and especially with the underlying future land use designation. And another part of it is process, because if we were going to, and I get that these villages and master plans are complicated creatures, they are in Olympia. So I'm sure they are in the county as well, is that we would be looking, we would want to, rather than like parse it out, look at it more holistically, like underlying comprehensive plan amendment to change the designation. And then also look at the zoning change that would go along with it, rather than it being split out into different pieces. So, and even another concern is that, even if there's a change in the underlying land use designation and the zoning, then there's a question about going back through the master plan process. And since it was part of this larger Glenmore Village project, there's been expectations of the neighborhood that there will be a park and grocery. So we've also offered or suggested to Mr. Schrader that maybe a text amendment is a more straightforward process, just to reduce the area of a grocery store, if that's one of the main concerns. So that kind of generally outlines where the city is on this.
Okay, so what Mr. Schrader testified to was that he was planning on doing a text code amendment to the master plan update within the next 24 to 48 hours. would that satisfy the City of Olympia's requirement and get things moving forward instead of having to go through another one-year process?
Yeah, well, there wouldn't need to be an amendment to the master plan. I believe it could just, I think what he would need to do is withdraw his application from the county to rezone the property and then submit a text amendment to change the code language around the size of the grocery store.
Okay.
Maya, did you have something on that?
Yeah, just to add a little bit on that, we communicated with Mr. Schreier last week about the process for that. And in order to have a development code amendment considered, it does have to be redocketed by our county commissioners. So he's free to submit an application at any time. And then early next year, the county commissioners would consider whether or not they'd like to add that to the official docket. As we've mentioned, this would probably be withdrawn if he did submit an application, and that would be made clear to the commissioners. But it does need to go through the docketing process again, so it has its fair day in court for the rest of the county citizens to know that this is coming. A code amendment can be adopted at any time of year, though. So unlike a land use amendment and rezone that's tied with the joint plan, and we only do these once a year adoptions for our comprehensive plans at the end of the year, a code change could be complete in June, it could be complete in September. So there's a little bit more flexibility around when we could take a final action on that kind of an item.
So Maya, just for my edification, since I don't have a lot of experience in this, and you guys do, we wouldn't have to have him drop his request for a code change for the county, submit a text code amendment to the City of Olympia, and then come back to the county with a code update for the property. And it could be done outside of this one-year process with the joint plan.
A little bit different. So it would be a code amendment to the Thurston County code, not to the City of Olympia code, because this property is in the urban growth area and it's under county jurisdiction. So the City of Olympia does not have to make any changes to their code. He only needs to apply to Thurston County, and then the Thurston County Planning Commission considers that. For code changes, we typically don't need to do joint planning commission meetings. We just consult with the City of Olympia on those items and get a staff input from them, and then bring it back to our planning commission and our board. So the process is a little bit shorter than a land use amendment and a rezone in this area.
Okay, and that would be acceptable to the City of Olympia, Kari?
Yes, and thanks for clarifying that. Yes, that would be an approach that that we would support.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this before I move to Commissioner Wheatley? Commissioner Wheatley, go ahead.
Thanks. I have two questions. One's directly related, the other one is not. My first question is, I just want to be sure I understand the basic issue from the point of view of the community, from the input you got. If it's rezoned as requested, the open space is lost. Is that correct? And if that's the case, what happens to open space with this concept of a text code amendment? Because if the main concern of the community is about protecting the potential for having some open space on that property, I want to be able to track that and make sure that that's paid attention to either way. So that's my first question. And then just as a quick then I had a question about the memo having the realignments, and are we going to talk about that tonight?
So I can answer the first question. We did the open house. We did not receive any written public comment. But we invited people to be aware that there will be public hearings, and they can submit written comments or come to the public hearings and testify. We talked to people, and generally they had two concerns. One was increased traffic through their neighborhood, The other was the loss of open space. That was a smaller concern for them. And yes, you're right. If there is a rezone, the open space requirement will be lost. That does not necessarily mean that the landowner wouldn't put open space in, but there would no longer be that requirement. And then as far as the corrections, zoning corrections, we're not going to discuss that because they're given. They're not up for debate or anything like that. It's just informational to let you know that that's in the joint plan update. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Plant open spaces for a park.
I'm sorry, we can't take any more comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't quite get my first question. How would this open space issue work with a text code amendment?
It wouldn't change because the underlying zoning district is the part that has the requirement for the open space, which can be in many different forms. It can be a park, it can be just a walking path in some grass. It can be a lot of different things.
Go ahead, Commissioner Day.
And asking for some best professional judgment here. Like what might be the differences, just back of the envelope, between traffic between the two zones? Like, would you expect to see large differences in the?
It would depend because the allowed uses, there's quite a long list on both of them of the allowed uses. And so it would all depend on what was applied for and what was approved for that area. I'm happy to gather the information and send you the long list of approved uses for both of them.
No, I think that actually perfectly answers my question. I just wanted to, in my mind, help resolve the question of traffic.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say.
Either one of them could have a lot of traffic or little traffic.
Yes,
And one could be better than the other, but we won't know until the actual use is applied.
that's correct. I think a supermarket, which is where the City of Olympia has indicated they are not going to require a 50,000 square foot supermarket, would generate a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Would a little local vegetable store generate that much traffic? Not that much, but some.
Okay.
So it all would depend. Yeah.
Transportation.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask my typical question. Are there set-asides in it for roads? Are they setting aside roads that are appropriate for in the whole areas? I don't mean just this piece of property. I'm talking about.
I would say that was part of the transportation plan, and this addresses the transportation plan, but it doesn't address that as far as I remember, Carrie. I don't remember anything in there about set-asides. Do you, for transportation? Can she hear me?
I don't know that she heard.
Carrie?
Oh, Leah, you cut out a little bit. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah. What was your question again?
So the question from the commissioner is, are there transportation set-asides? And I don't believe they're addressed in the joint plan, but it refers to the transportation plan, and both jurisdictions do their transportation. This just refers to that. Is that correct?
Yeah, can I ask what do you mean by transportation set-asides?
Extension of roads where you think roads should be in the future, so that you set them aside now, so that people who are developing property know where the roads will be, and they don't build houses on top of where the road should be.
That's an interesting question, because we do reference our transportation master plan and link it in the joint comprehensive plan. What I understand is when there are development proposals in the UGA, they are sent to the city for review and input, and our transportation engineer will provide comments and suggestions, and that the county staff will then consider those. But I believe that then the county will interpret the standards that, because there's some differences between the city's engineering standards and the county's standards regarding roads and connections. So I don't know if we have situations where the city's asked for a set aside and the county has not required it as a condition. If that's something that you want us to come back with, I can pursue that and get more specific information.
Just that I've asked this question when we were doing our comp plan. I've asked it when we were working with the city of Tumwater. And since we are a planning commission, I think that planning is important. So that's why I ask it. We should plan ahead for roads. There are too many roads in Thurston County and in the cities that dead end in the neighborhoods. And anybody who would look at it from the air would say that road ought to go all the way through to Yelm Highway, or the north-south roads. It's kind of like College Street in Lacey. It dead ends into a rural road, and there's a whole bunch of houses that are built back there with a lot of, it's just not good planning as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to be asking this question every time we turn this corner with transportation. So, and my second question is, I didn't understand the difference between the county and city plans. That on that one slide that you had that said that the city has different.
On the transportation?
Right.
Yeah, so we have different policies on the way we measure level of service, which means how many cars there are on the road, and is the capacity of the road enough for the number of cars? So the city has recently switched to a mode of measuring level of service using all modes of transportation, bus, bike, cars, and pedestrians. The county has not moved to that different level of measuring that. We only measure vehicle level of service. And so that was where the difference was. And instead of changing the policy in the joint plan, we left the policy to match the county's measurement of level of service and put a footnote in and said that the city does it differently. Is that understandable?
Yes, yeah, that's understandable.
Okay.
Commissioner Pestinger?
Yes, thank you, Chair Casina. I had a question about the current zoning involving the requirement of a grocery store. The applicant stated that this was the only piece of property in the city with that designation. He stated that there was multiple grocery stores in the near proximity. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good location for a residential development. I think it's a good location for a grocery store. It seems like the nearest grocery stores are Yelm Highway and College Street, or over on Capitol Way, North Street. Are there any other grocery stores nearby? And does the city staff believe it would be valuable to have a grocery store at that location?
Is there a grocery store plan for Briggs Village now?
I don't know. I think that's in the City of Olympia, and I'm not familiar with.
Carrie, could you address that?
Sure. That is a really good question. Gosh, what, 10 years ago? I'm thinking back now. We actually approved a grocery store at Briggs Village. It was another Thriftway that the Stormans would own. So we actually approved their building permit, and then Walmart went in down College and Yelm Highway, and that really shook up the market for grocers. So Stormans hung on for a while, but then at some point they just realized that, like, a larger format, like a 35,000, 40,000 square foot grocery store just couldn't be supported. And there are certain market areas for grocers, and the bigger the store, the bigger the market area is. Whether one can be supported at Rich and Yelm Highway, somebody who is a specialist in market assessment would need to really dive into that. But given that there's Safeway and Tumwater, and then there's the Safeway, and then the Walmart in Lacey, that market could already be saturated.
There's three.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Pessinger, did you have more?
No, I said thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheelie?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, how does this relate to the school or the use? Isn't there a new school going in somewhere around there?
Are you asking me, Ellen?
I guess I am. I don't know who I'm asking. Anybody who knows. I'm just,
It's county jurisdiction.
Is this across from the Spooner property? And
Yeah.
what's happening with the Spooner property?
So
I'm just thinking of markets for grocery stores, if you have a bunch of kids.
Right. So it is county jurisdiction. So I will address the school. The schools are allowed in most residential zones with a special use permit. No special use permit or any other land use permit has been submitted. So we don't have any idea what will be built there. That's quite a ways down the road. It depends on how the rezone goes, how the master plan amendment goes, and then what will eventually be applied for at that location. So there's no way of knowing. There's talk of a school, but it's up in the air.
Can I also add on to that? So the Olympia School District has been in discussions with the City Parks Department about potentially doing a land swap for at Spooner's. So the city purchased that land. They're in the process of doing a park master plan. And then while all that was happening, the school district actually purchased probably about 20 acres south of Harrison Avenue and east of Kaiser Road. And then it turned out that it wasn't feasible for them to do what they want to do there and meet our street connection requirements. So they've been in discussions. The school district and the city parks department have been in discussions about doing some type of a land swap where a school, and I don't know if it's elementary, middle, or high school, I'm afraid I don't know, where they would do a land swap where a school would go on a portion of the Spooner's property.
Go ahead,
In
Commissioner
case
Hanson.
it's different information, I'll just say that at my Kiwanis Club meeting a couple weeks ago, Parks Director Paul Simmons from the city came and his presentation indicated that it was a done deal. There's a high school that's going to go on the Spooner's property, and in addition to parkland, and that part of the swap is for property on the west side, and that the high school won't be developed for probably 10 years or more, but that the school district has agreed in the process to develop some ball fields now, so that the city has that resource to add kind of to the park system. But from what I saw in his presentation, it sounded like this is going to happen. It's a done deal. So in case that's different information.
You have the latest, it sounds like.
Does anybody else have anything? I have a couple. What are the chances that some of this land has been in the UGA since we started doing UGAs and has never been developed? What are the chances any of that's ever going to be released back to unincorporated county?
I think the chances are very slim, and I think that you're recalling the Tumwater situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the sections of land that were removed from the Tumwater UGA were based on their viability as heavily densely populated because of flooding and high groundwater issues. That's why they were removed. In my opinion, it's a very small chance that anything would be removed from these 3,900 acres.
Okay.
It's a small UGA as far as UGAs go.
My next question seemed like it was a little tangential to everything we're doing, but you brought it up that lot is going to, plans to service all of the UGA by 2035, or maybe it was 2040, I can't remember. So I assume that a large portion of the UGA already is being serviced by sewer. But then you said that the largest contamination to groundwater is from septic systems and not from stormwater. That seems backwards to me. What am I not understanding here about how the impact of septics in the UGA compared to the impact of stormwater?
Well, I can't speak to the impact of stormwater because I'm not a stormwater engineer, but
Well, I thought you actually mentioned stormwater in the
I
presentation.
did. I
Okay.
mentioned that managing it is a critical part of increasing population.
Mhm.
And that it was not related to sewers. That was wastewater. That was septic tanks and wastewater, and how that fits in with protecting drinking water because it contaminates the ground.
Mhm. Well,
Just
go ahead.
Most stormwater is gonna be surface conveyance.
Yeah.
And septics will much more likely to, or built to infiltrate.
Mhm.
So, and also the kinds of contaminants that they would be looking for and you get like an impairment from are different between stormwater and wastewater. And you'd be looking for the wastewater contaminants more frequently in drinking water.
That's fair. All right. Does anybody else have any questions first? Oh, I guess we should go and see if any of our guests from Olympia would like to ask anything. I haven't seen any hands from you folks yet, but if you have anything, now would be a great time to hear from you.
Well,
I'm just gonna jump in because I don't really understand how this is working right now. I just real quick to your like septic comment. So keep in mind that they're gonna have the area, the lines will be there, but people with existing septic systems aren't required to connect when they come through. So for example, like a bunch of the houses near Ward Lake, they're all on septic still, even though there is a sewer line that goes down Boulevard. So that's why it still is a major source of contaminant, because they're not required to connect if you have an existing septic system. If it fails, then typically after that point, you'll be required to connect. So my question, I have a question about the Glenmore Village. So if they go through a code text amendment, because it sounds like the only thing the applicant has an issue with is the grocery store requirement. So it sounds like if they go through the code amendment method, then kind of like everything that the neighborhood hasn't promised in that master plan development would hypothetically could stay or would stay in the place other than the grocery store requirement?
I can't speak for the applicant. I don't know if that is the only issue the applicant has with the rezone. If the code amendment would be satisfactory, I don't know.
No, that's not like exactly my question. I'm just saying, like, if they went through the code amendment process and they went and they came and they just, because right now, from what we've heard, the only issue has been the grocery store requirement. So
the only issue with the applicant or the residents?
Yeah, the only issue that the applicant has stated at this point has been the grocery store, versus the residents have brought up like transportation and open space. So if they go through the code text amendment where they come in and they say, hey, we'd like to have the Thurston County code amended. So instead of requiring a supermarket, say the supermarket only has to be 10,000 square feet. It's like a convenience store, basically. All the other requirements like open space and uses that would hypothetically would most likely stay the same, because they're not going to be able to put in new uses that they wouldn't have otherwise been allowed.
That's correct.
Okay. So the code amendment option would provide the least change from the master plan.
That's correct.
Development
Yes.
agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else online that would like to ask any questions or tell us anything? Carol?
No, I'm really more interested in learning.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have Carol.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I showed that I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
No, I'm interested in learning more about the situation and filling in some of the details. So don't have any questions right now on this.
Okay, how about Candy? Did you have something?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chair. And I'm not very familiar with this process either, but the question that comes to my mind is if the applicant decides to go through a text amendment, does it make this joint plan process moot? I mean, if he chooses not to request a change in the master plan and consequently, I guess, the joint plan, then do we not have to proceed with amendment?
We would continue with the joint plan as a whole because it is ready for an update. This one land use zoning amendment, if we get a withdrawal and a formal withdrawal of the application, then it just falls away as part of the joint plan update.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else online? Well, any other questions from the boardroom?
Are we gonna get a copy of it to read, or do we have to go online and do it? I want it online. I spent too many hours in front of the computer to sit there and read an extensive document. Well, I went through it this weekend. I'm on board.
Would it be possible to have
Let me
a
pull up
copy
slide
printed
nine.
off for Commissioner
Yes.
Carmen?
Thank you.
It was included with the memo as attachment B.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, we had to click on the link to go to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Too big to send.
All right, well, with that, we do have the issue on the, oh, go ahead. One for Commissioner Nelson as well, please. While we're at it, does anybody else need a physical copy of the plan? All right. So we still have on the table the issue of our public hearing. And with that, if anybody is ready to move forward with the motion, I would entertain it.
If you want, I'm just gonna say beforehand that I'm not comfortable scheduling a public hearing at this time.
All right.
I don't know about anybody else, but I haven't seen any of and this is a complete repeal and replace.
It
Is what we
is.
were told today, so that's to me, that's gonna be a lot of reading to do.
It was a lot.
Before we even get to.
So one of the things that was an option before us was to schedule a public hearing, and we could have another work session before then. But are you saying that you would feel more comfortable having the work session before we schedule the public hearing?
Definitely.
Definitely.
But the public hearing would come after that work session, not before.
We could also have a public hearing with a subsequent work session. I expect the public hearing would be.
The point I'm making is we need to have a work session beforehand. Because we as a group need to look at it and discuss it before we put it out for a public hearing, is my opinion. I don't like, you can't just come in and say, here you go, planning commission. We're gonna do this without even a discussion. Our job is to do this. And I can tell you from my experience, every time Thurston County's had a problem, it's because they've just said, okay, we're gonna go from here to here, and then we'll let the planning commission discuss it. And that's where we get big issues. We get people that come in that are mad about something that they heard, which might even be something that as a group, we just all look at it and go, this has to be a mistake. But then we'll have 20 people come in here and spend 2 or 3 minutes telling us how we can't do that. And we're all sitting here going, yeah, you're right. So, that's where I come from, is we have to, I think we as a group, and obviously now including Olympia, we need to go through this and look at it and have our discussions, and make sure that it's something that we're willing to put forward.
That's fair. from a timeline standpoint, if we did a work session on October 26th and then took up the question of whether or not to schedule the public hearing, are you going to run into any problems there? It looks like there would be, 30 some days in between that you could still hit our markers.
Yeah, we can still hit the markers with that.
All right. Still, if anybody has a motion, I would entertain it, but if there's no motion, that'd be fine as well. Commissioner Wheatley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, I'm a little bit confused, I guess, and I want a bit of clarification. Mr. Schrader is proposing to withdraw his request for zoning change. So that appears to me to leave only the zoning alignment review. And what I understand is that there's that somehow is something that we don't have input on. And I presume the public therefore doesn't either. So I guess I'd like some clarification. If Mr. Schrader withdraws his request, what would we be holding a public hearing on?
The adoption of the joint plan.
Which is what besides the changing of are we talking about adopting a revised plan, and what's in it besides the zoning alignment review and this?
So the zoning alignment.
The totality, not just the land use component, but the whole thing?
Correct.
I guess I'm very confused.
Yeah,
here.
the whole joint plan has to be updated on a regular basis by state law. We have to work with the city to make sure that our county UGA codes and goals and policies are in alignment with the city. And so that has to be updated on a regular basis. It's well overdue for an update.
Okay, so does that mean that we need to be looking at all the other elements as the planning commission, that the planning commission would hold the hearing? So we need to look at all the other elements that you presented on.
Yes.
The transportation. Okay, well, I guess I don't understand why we're not covering some of that tonight then. Or are we planning to do that?
Well, I'm
because I'm
for
certainly,
questions. Yeah.
I agree. If this is it and we have all those other elements we're supposed to be thinking about, we haven't seen them.
Well, they were sent to you last week. There was the memo was summarized, and then there were attachments. One was the corrections, the zoning corrections, which will be adopted no matter what. And then the other attachment B was the joint plan itself.
Okay.
Which came in the form of a link because it's a large document. So if you go to the memo that was sent to you, attachment B, a link to the document.
And will we be getting any input has anybody else in the county looked at any of these elements? Have any other committees looked at these elements?
You're it.
Okay.
Staff has spent the last 2 years collaborating with the City of Olympia on these goals and policies. All of the other departments of the county have reviewed those different elements and either approved or revised them as part of the joint plan. Transportation, utilities, parks, public works, all that stuff was reviewed by those departments.
And one final question on that. Are there any expansions or is it all within the current boundaries?
It's all within the current boundaries. No change of UGA boundaries.
So our next scheduled meeting is October 26th. And is that scheduled as a joint meeting or is that scheduled just as a work session?
It's a joint meeting.
Okay, and we can use that as a work session, obviously. And so hopefully everybody will have a chance over the next 2 weeks to really dive into that document and see where we're going with it. And then our next meeting after that would be the November 4th meeting. Do we remember? November 2nd.
That's a standard.
That's a standard
Thurston
first Wednesday,
County.
Thurston County meeting. Do you have access to an agenda on that one yet, or have you started developing an agenda on that one yet? Is it pretty full yet, or if we need to do more on
That
joint?
one contains a public hearing. So we
Yeah.
would not be holding a joint work session on that day. We would, on the 26th, the commissions would need to determine if they needed another work session before setting a public.
I guess where I'm getting at is we might need a couple of work sessions and our meetings are getting backed up.
Yep.
I just got a question for the planning commission.
Yeah.
Have you all had a chance to review the 247 page
No,
joint plan?
no.
Olympia group?
No, I haven't. And,
No.
yeah.
No.
All right. Commissioner Wheatley, you had some more?
Yeah, I guess I have a request, especially with the answer that was just given. Do we have anything that will show us does it show the changes? Are we going to be able to scan for what's different about the new one over the old one? Because if not, we need access to both to be able to try to figure that out ourselves. But I'd certainly appreciate it if we could sort of see where the changes are.
I think we have Maya to answer that question.
Yeah, so we do have a tracked change version that staff has been working from. However, it tracks changes from the 2016 Olympia Comprehensive Plan, not from the past joint plan, which was last updated, last major update, I believe, was in 2004 with some minor updates along the way. So it really is kind of a whole complete repeal and replace. Even if we provided you the tracked change version from the Olympia comp plan, there's so many different people who have edited that document, it would not be readable in tracked change format. So Commissioner Wheatley, if there's another way we can meet your request, we're happy to do that and provide the information. But I will say most of the updates are pulling in policy language from the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan updates that have occurred since 2004, from the Olympia Comp Plan updates that have occurred since 2004. It's mostly a consistency update. There haven't really been any major policy changes, but there's a lot of wording changes. So however we can meet your requests and provide that information in a way that's easy and digestible, we're happy to do that.
Commissioner Day?
So I think kind of along the lines where I think Helen was going, I think what I would really benefit from would be if we could get kind of a walkthrough of what the substantive differences might be. I feel like I would be completely just blindly reading something and deciding whether or not it sounded good. And that's, I think we're trying to understand where we were, understand where it's going, and what's that delta between the two. And I think would really benefit from staff helping fill in what that delta is, because if we can't read it in the track changes, and I don't think that would be a great way to handle it, is to try and do side-by-side document review. I would really benefit from a walkthrough of what the delta is between the two.
Is that something we can do for October 26th?
A challenge to get that done in the 2 weeks. A big challenge, but I can do my best.
Do you need a copy? Okay.
I've read it.
Is there anything else from our friends online? Go ahead.
Well, just speaking for myself and not for anyone else on the commission, I'm curious about the status of farmland in the county, because, in the city, we are, of course, losing some of our farmland as we develop, as we urbanize. So I'm wondering if that, how that issue is playing out at the county level, and whether, you've been tracking that and have any thoughts about the future of agriculture in Thurston County.
I'm happy to chime in on that. So we actually have a separate docket item right now, a comprehensive plan amendment that is ongoing. our community-driven review of agriculture. And that is looking at not only farmland in rural Thurston County, but also considering farmland within the urban growth areas. So we just convened a stakeholder work group. We had our first meeting last night, actually, and we have several farmers on that work group, some of them who border or are located within the urban growth areas. And we're looking at updating, considering updates to our county zoning for long-term agriculture of commercial significance. So that's one big component of that work group. Several other items are on the plate for review under that project that we're kind of handling the land use and zoning side first, since that's the biggest and will take the longest. But it also looks at things like our incentive programs, streamlining permitting and making regulatory requirements easier for farmers, and a number of other concerns that we've heard from our ag community. So it's in progress. It's moving fairly slowly. We have a stakeholder work group that's going probably through spring of next year. And then we're going to start working on broader outreach to the whole community of Thurston County, other cities and jurisdictions, and touching points with all of the folks who may be affected by that.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Wheelie?
Yeah, to add to that, both the Thurston Conservation District and the Ag Committee, what is it officially called in the county? Anyway, the Ag Committee have written letters of concern about the continued loss of agricultural land in the county. We're due for a new agricultural survey, I think next year maybe, or I'm not sure. And that will give us a better picture of how bad the loss is. But I believe, and Maya, maybe you have the number, but I think it's 3,000 acres a year is still the average amount of loss. And it's so as far as the Ag Committee and the Conservation District are concerned, it's a real crisis for protecting ag land in the county. And of course, now on top of that, we have new pressures from changes in the economy and the pressure from the logistics industry. And cheap land now has an appeal for a new sector that didn't exist the last time comp plans were written. So the sort of 10,000 foot level, there's a lot of concern for keeping ag land and keeping people in agriculture and the many challenges to do that.
Tracy, did you have something?
I did. My question is, since most of the Olympia Planning Commission, or I should say, we're familiar with the Olympia comp plan. Is there anything that shows us where the changes from the Olympia comp plan would be, so that, because we have the advantage of already knowing the other one, if we can see where the changes are, it would help us understand.
This joint plan is largely based on the Olympia comp plan. What we did first was go through and change the language so it was not city-centric, that it was more county-centric.
Oh, okay.
And we reviewed all of the policies with all of the various departments, and most of them were in alignment. Most departments said, these are exactly the way our policies are worded. So there were not a lot of substantive changes from the Olympia comp plan.
Okay, so the big change is just making sure that it was worded for county. I understand now.
Okay.
Carol, I'm sorry.
Candy. That's Candy.
It's Candy. It's small
Thank
print,
you.
I'm sorry.
So last year, we recently recommended approval to policies in the comp plan that dealt with diversity and equity and inclusion. And will the revised joint plan acknowledge those new policies and recognize them?
Did you say that was in the 2021 update?
Yeah, if there's somebody else on the commission, they can help me out, but I think it was 20. 2021.
I'm not familiar with the 2021 Olympia comp plan.
I think those got added in, but I can double check.
It was
Okay,
language.
well, yeah, we spent a lot of time on those and there was a lot of public input and, you know, that's the kind of thing we'd be very concerned about and want to see included. Thank you.
All right, back to Tracy.
I was just gonna say to Candy that I opened it up on my second screen over here while we've been talking, and that was the first thing I looked for, and I found it. So it's still in there.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Wheatley.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I will ask sort of one of my standard questions now, which is about including the housing affordability element of the Growth Management Act as well, which was, I mean, it is now part of the Growth Management Act to require analysis for housing affordability. I've been asking about this on, for the benefit of folks from Olympia. I've been asking about this in terms of the Grand Mound UGA. And I believe it's a requirement. I mean, if anything is going forward, the comp plan review process requires this, is my understanding. And it's there's a lot of stuff about affordability and equity that was passed in 2021. And I am interested to know how that's going to be incorporated going forward. And this is as good a place to ask, about this particular change as any. When and how do we start to incorporate that?
There is a section on housing affordability in this joint plan. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to read it.
Commissioner Day.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. So I've heard, I think from both Maya and Lee, some kind of hedgy language about not many or not a lot of substantive changes. Is that used as a hedge, or is that being used precisely that there are only a couple substantive changes? Because I think my interest in thinking about the kind of the delta between old plan, new plan would be on really just those substantive issues and not on the, making sure that you've got consistency in language across the two.
No, I think it's accurate.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. Planning is a slow moving vehicle. Things don't change very fast. There have been added things for climate change, sea level rise, inclusivity and diversity, affordable housing, but overall, the plan hasn't changed a bunch.
Perfect. And my interest is really in those things that have substantively changed and maybe some of the rationale behind them. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any more questions in the boardroom?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Since the ag thing got brought up, and this is as much for Olympia and especially staff, I'm curious of how we're approaching transferable development rights. And is there what's in here, and for the city, what's in your plan to get that going? Because that was a promise made to landowners in the 90s, and it's pretty much gone unfulfilled since.
No.
Maya, do you want to start with that?
I would love to chime in on that. I'm so glad you brought that up, Commissioner Nelson, because that was probably what we spent an hour of our 2-hour meeting talking about last night. So that is a separate program. We're not addressing that through the joint plan update, but we are reviewing and considering that in part through the CPA 16 community driven review of agriculture. And then also we have a separate spot for it on our development code docket. So if we come up with code changes, we can move that through. But we did have a TDR summit, I believe it was about this time last year. And as we move through this land use piece with the stakeholder work group, we're going to be discussing different types of options for compensation and funding for agriculture, including the folks who were rezoned in 1990. So that discussion is evolving. The joint plan is not intended to address that because we're going to need to do an entire county update to include all of the urban growth areas possibly with that.
Well, I mean, I think I agree as code it's not, but as comprehensive plan goals and policies, I think we need to put language in there that says this is important. This is something, you know, we want to take this development out of this area and move it to this area. And, you know, code is fine, but it also needs to be a part of our comp plan and stuff, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Does anybody else have anything on that issue or any others? Staff, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about?
I don't have anything further.
Okay, well, I guess we'll pick up this conversation again on October 26th. And do we have anything for the good of the order? Or anything that staff wants to tell us? All right, well, having no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.